is a way of God communicating with us. Again, we can discuss about how do you verify the revelation. You can ask me that. But when it comes to revelation, what God tells us in the Quran is, say He is God the One, the Eternal, well, the Independent, does not beget, nor is He begotten, and there's none like Him. Very simple definition of God. Independence, oneness, does not
Oneness
beget.
is a very Buddhist, that's what Buddhists believe as well.
But Buddhists don't believe in a God per se. It's not necessarily a religion.
They say God is oneness.
Their definition of God is different. Yeah, because Buddhism is more a way of life. The-
Would you not say that Islam is a way of life?
Islam is a religion that constitutes a way of life. Religion as per the definition of mainstream people, but technically we believe that the path to God is a way of life. Like me speaking to you politely, I'm doing worship. I'm following Islam.
I
Me,
would say the same thing about myself.
and that's why I said to you at the beginning and previously as well, there's more that unites us than divides us.
I completely agree.
And in order to kind of refine what you're doing, because you coming in the park, I saw you on the side. You're coming, and you're taking time out of your day, and there's certain things that you believe in. You're sticking up for what you believe. I think that's admirable, and I think that's good. And I think Islam, or even if a person doesn't like certain terminologies, God gives us certainty. God gives us clarity. God gives us strength. If God says, look, I am one, I'm independent, I don't beget, no one am begotten, there's none like me. If a person says, yeah, but there is that aspect of God, or getting to God is like this or like that, a person's giving their own thing. And with all due respect, like when I go to, say, a biology professor, I'm going to humble myself in front of him because he's studied, he's got stripes. You know what I mean? Like the guy has studied. With me, like, who am I when it comes to biology? So if God, the all knowing, He's the one that's told us who He is, He's the one that's given us evidences to get close to Him. Yes, Zarina, you can be a Muslim and you can love a Jewish person. You can be Muslim, you can love a Christian person and a Hindu person and this and you can do all those things. You can be, and say, you know what, I don't like feminism and I respect hate and this and that. You can do all of those things. But in your life, you will have clarity and you will have direction for those days that you don't want to come on a Sunday.
Well, I would definitely say my worshipping my goddess gives me a lot of clarity and direction, and I think that the way I connect to God is through worshipping my goddess, and this is how I connect to God, and this is what gives me clarity and direction from the goddess I pray to, from the spirits whom I commune with.
What's her name, the goddess's name?
It's the Egyptian cat goddess. I don't like to say her name out of respect.
Oh, you don't even say her name out of respect, yeah?
For me, it's a respect thing. It's the Egyptian cat goddess.
Not saying the name, yeah?
Well, it's funny, isn't it? They say do not take the Lord's name in vain. That's something I take quite seriously.
But just saying her name without vein,
Well, I just don't really like to.
you don't have to, but I'm just curious. Just like, remember the handshake, you were curious.
Yeah.
So this is like
Maybe there's a similar thing in a way.
possibly.
Okay. I will say about the handshake though, for me personally, because I watched the clip when you said about the reason why men don't shake women's hands is because it's seen as a commitment for marriage. Personally,
That's not what I said. That was part of the reason.
part of the reason.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you said, but what the part of the reason is? For me, shaking somebody's hands is viewed as a form of endearment, and that's why I find it. I think a lot of maybe non-Muslim people might find it a bit cold when people don't shake hands, or even like hugging, because I think as like people we like physical contact, and I think that a lot of non-Islamic people might feel a bit maybe a bit cold from someone who doesn't want to shake hands or hug them. Even same with like the whole thing of a woman like covering herself. I think a lot of non-Islamic women might take that as a bit.
Would you agree with me that Chinese and Indian people make up most of the population on the planet? Yeah, because they've got two of the biggest populations. And Indians, would you agree that? Oh, you need it, yeah? Would you say that Indians primarily follow Hinduism?
Yeah, I mean, but even Hinduism isn't really a real thing, is it?
Yeah, we'll come to that. And would you say that predominantly Chinese follow Buddhism?
I mean, it's funny because these words like Hinduism, Buddhism, even Islam,
in
like
terms of our understanding.
they've sort of been corrupted because it's like, I mean, look, I want to be very careful as well because I'm not a Hindu and I don't
Yeah.
want to misrepresent anything to Hinduism, but I will say that in advance. But I know that regarding these religions, it's as if they've been given these names almost by like somebody else, because it's like what happened was people would kind of follow the religions of their ancestors.
That's
People would
fine.
praise their
We'll come to
ancestors and
this,
religions of
but
their
let's stick with the
tribes.
point, yeah, which is,
Yeah.
would you say in China they follow Buddhism and in India they follow Hinduism?
Yeah, they follow these schools
Typically,
of thought.
yeah.
Yes.
In Buddhism, they don't shake hands; they bow.
Interesting.
In Hinduism, they don't shake hands; they join the hands, and then they bow.
Interesting.
So that makes up majority of the population of the planet. If you now include 1.8 billion Muslims who believe shaking hands is disrespectful because you are now invading the person's private space. Now think about this now. The only people that have told you that shaking of the hands, nay even hugging, even the African tribes, if you meet them and you go for a hug, they will deem that to be extremely disrespectful. Now, who has convinced us that shaking of the hands and hugging is the normal thing to do? It's the Europeans.
I
Again,
mean, maybe it's
again,
just a different way of
again, it comes to this whole European-centric,
Eurocentric.
yeah, Eurocentric view that this is our way of determining what is right or wrong by what the quote-unquote white man does.
Maybe it's just that different cultures have different ways of expressing endearment. So the French, for example, like to kiss on the cheek. I think that's quite sweet. And maybe it's just that different cultures, the way in which people greet each other, different. Because, like, for example, different cultures would have certain temperaments, and it's like a culture where people are very like I don't know, very
Touchy,
tactile. Like that's part of the culture. Like I know Latin America, for example, they're a lot more tactile and stuff. Whereas I think Western Europe is a bit colder. People are not maybe as tactile. I know that's a stereotype for Germans. I'm not really that well travelled. Just
Yeah. That's fine. I mean, it's good you've acknowledged that because, Zarina, when we look at where the information is coming from, that's when we realize, oh, damn. Like, I.
the world is different everywhere.
Exactly.
Effectively.
And Eurocentric view is something that does need to be identified
Yes, I agree.
and does need to be challenged in moments like this. Because, especially if you're going to another country and you're saying, oh, they're doing this, that's wrong.
I
Yeah.
agree. Well, it's interesting you say that because it's like, for example, with Christianity, with the Catholics, when they went to like certain parts of the world to conquer, they said, "Oh, your worldview is savagery," and they said, "You're savages and you're savages." And it's interesting, isn't it, how people would come to other cultures and say, "Your worldview is savagery." Like you've got these tribes where women dance around naked, and it's not savagery. Like me saying, "Oh, you're not shaking my hand" is rude, but it's like, well, actually, maybe it's not rude. Maybe that's just his way of life, and maybe in order for people to be more respectful of different cultures, we need to actually see that like it's not necessarily savagery or rude or idolatrous. It's that the world is different. And that's why globalism is so dangerous, because they want to sort of destroy
Yeah.
people's cultures and have everybody have one world thing rather than saying, no, this culture is different, this culture is different. But I will say, just if it's okay to say on that, I do truly believe that cross-culturally, one universal thing regarding the world, and I think we can all agree on this, and having said this at the park, men and women are different. I do think that regardless of where you go in the world, regardless of your culture, most of the world would agree that men and men, women and women,
Yeah.
and there's no such thing as non-binary. That's really the crux of my message, and I actually think that that is what is really, really, really destroying the West, is the people have forgotten that men and women are different.
That's. I would undercut that with one other thing.
Sure.
I would undercut that with where has this thought come from?
Feminism and Marxism.
And where has that come from?
Marxism.
It's come from liberalism, which has
No,
come
actually, it's come from, because Marxism is very different from liberalism.
liberalism with a small L, philosophical liberalism.
Because classical liberals are also very against feminism.
You're looking at liberalism with a capital L, which
Yeah.
is in terms of politics. I'm saying small L, i.e., philosophical liberalism, which is one one aspect of which is the splitting of church and state. Yeah, in it, like separating religion and going by and like human beings, what we decide, that's what we decide. Yeah,
That
it is
wasn't
raining as well.
necessarily a bad thing because I think a lot of those liberals were actually challenging a lot of the repression
It
of the
was bad.
church.
Shall I tell you
There
why?
was a lot of repression of the church and stuff, so I think they were actually just challenging that.
Repression of the church doesn't now mean that you
Right.
split it completely.
Because the church was sort of abusing their authority, so I
Yeah.
think those kind of liberals were just trying to gain back power for the people. Just,
But then when the church was, when that issue was solved, surely should have rejoined afterwards, isn't it? Because once the problem's been solved, then you revert back to what worked, isn't it?
I mean, the problem sometimes with these organized religious institutions is that a lot of them would kind of use religion as a way to abuse their power. And I think ultimately, if we're going to move forward and have a more godly world, which I think both you and I generally want, I think a lot of people want, is actually starting to see how religion or following in the path to the mind can be used as a way to actually bring people together rather than as a way to conquer and divide people and destroy other people's cultures and faiths. I
It's
think
the
that was the biggest problem, especially with the Catholic Church.
it's the same with the rise of feminism as well. Like one of the reasons feminism
Like it,
arose,
yeah.
yeah, was because people claimed that men were abusing their power. But that doesn't, and this is what you fight for as well, which is that just because that was done doesn't now mean that you erode masculinity completely.
Absolutely, and
So,
also
so
it's
I
a
would say
very
that, yeah.
small minority of men. I would argue that feminism is women abusing their power. I think feminism from day one was a female supremacist movement. I
And
don't think
Zarina, I
it
would say the
was,
same
yeah.
for religion, that if you look at academics like Karen Armstrong, who've written books like Fields of Blood, she said the same thing, that if you look at majority of the religious wars, they are actually based on politics and geopolitics.
Absolutely.
And that's where these differences and that's where these issues come from. People will weaponize that and they will claim to be attached to that, but upon closer inspection and analysis, you realize that no, it's not actually Islam that says that, it's not Christianity that says that,
It's
it's, well,
people that
it's
use
people.
these religions and weaponize them for evil. Yes, I completely agree
So,
with you.
so, so coming back to your point about the goddess, like, what's your evidence that that goddess exists?
Well, for me, because all ancient cultures used to worship goddesses, and for me, this is very important, especially as a woman, because I think that one of the biggest problems with these, say, modern Abrahamic religions is a lack of goddesses and a lack of honoring the divine feminine. And this honoring of the goddess is, the goddess represents that feminine aspect, and I think the feminine aspect of the woman, and all ancient cultures had goddesses, statues of goddesses, and this idea of reverence for the woman and reverence for the divine feminine is important. And for me, this is where I gain a lot of my influence regarding being anti-feminism, because for me, this idea of women tapping into their divine feminine, of being feminine, is actually a very big spiritual underpinning with it, and I gain a lot of influence for that.
Would you say the Western woman is more feminine, or would you say Muslim women are more feminine in a holistic, general sense?
I mean, neither Western nor Muslim women really adhere to what I consider to be classic femininity, I would say.
Which is?
Well, when I think of femininity, I suppose for me the feminine ideal is this whole idea of, for example, no disrespect to either, but I do see kind of two extremes in a way. Like, for example, a woman wearing a burqa versus a woman being overly promiscuous. These two images of the woman, for me, represent what some women would dub the Madonna on the floor, or the good girl and the bad girl. And this is something that I do see that comes from the Abrahamic religions, especially Christianity. This idea of women are either good and chaste and virtuous, where you cover yourself, cover everything, or overly sexual and over the top. And for me, the resolution with that is the woman being the feminine, i.e., for me, someone who I've always viewed as a feminine ideal is Marilyn Monroe, because I know she's just like a person, but for me, Monroe represents that balance of a woman being, sexy and sensual, but also being, kind and gentle and feminine. Or even you could say the Disney princesses.
Okay, let's
that
stick
sense
with
of,
your example. That's interesting. Let's break that down. You said Marilyn Monroe. First thing you said was sexy, yeah. So Marilyn Monroe, she would wear obviously skirts,
yeah,
yeah,
she wore like, nice, elegant
tight dresses, yeah, tight,
elegant
yeah,
clothes.
elegant, which was tight, which was revealing.
Not in
Um,
the same way that someone like, say, Cardi B or
I agree.
Nicole
I
Scherzinger.
agree. I
Yeah.
agree. So, but nevertheless, showing one's body. You,
What's wrong with that?
no, I'm just asking. Do you think that's part of?
I think that women are part of, maybe men don't really understand this, but women by nature want to feel attractive, because I think women by nature want to feel attractive and want to be attractive to men. And the thing is that when a woman is very, very attractive, that actually, I don't know how to explain this. If a woman being very attractive and very desirable increases her attractiveness and magnetism, meaning that if a man goes with her, if other men look at her as being very attractive, it actually makes him appear better. That's why you have the concept of the trophy wife, of, oh, my wife is very beautiful and desirable, other men are looking at her. But the fact that I now come as the man, meaning that I'm the man and I'm in charge, I'm the dominant one. So other men might look at her and find her desirable, but because I'm the man,
I got
they're
you.
not going to
I
challenge
got
me
you. I
on
got
it.
you.
Because a lot of, like, say, like, I know, like, for example, like, Mad Men, you have this thing, they have these men who are, these very, like, dominant males, and they have attractive wives, but it's like, it's the whole thing of the look but don't touch. And this is a very feminine thing. The desire, I kind of made a joke about it with Mr. Dawa about what if I want you to look at me, and I was joking, but the actual root I was trying to say is that women, part of being feminine, the feminine desire, is the desire to be perceived as attractive. Because, for example, if I was standing there at Speaker's Corner wearing a burqa or hijab, it would not generate the same levels of attention. There's actually a very psychological reason why
Let's
women
pin
wear
this down
certain
though. Let's pin this
clothes.
down. So you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, a portion or part of quality of femininity is showing one's body. Yeah.
It's not showing one's body. What I mean. What I mean is that the desire to be perceived as attractive to other people is a very, very important part of being a feminine woman. Most women,
So
like,
you don't have to show your body.
well, it's when because show your body. What do you like? Women, there's a reason why women wear certain clothes, like just the hourglass shape. Like, women want to have their body shown in a way, but it's like the feminine figure. Again, if you think of the goddess, like, if you look at a lot of these goddesses, the way they dress, they wear certain clothes. It's that idea of looking at a woman in the reverence and the beauty. And I do think that pornography has actually really harmed this a lot, because pornography is
What's
really
wrong with
harmed.
pornography though?
Well, pornography has actually really harmed the way that a lot of men look at women, because instead of looking at the feminine body as being beautiful and wow, it's like reducing the woman's body down to like a commodity. So I think that's the
But
big
then
problem
with
with.
Marilyn Monroe, she shows her arms and legs. What?
That's not the same as being.
No, but here's the thing though. Somebody showing her arms and legs, but somebody says, you know what? I just want to be in a bra and panties. Where do you draw the line?
Well, I think Marilyn Monroe was very good at dressing in a way that was elegant and classy and feminine. And I think the same would go for a lot of those Hollywood female icons like Rita Hayworth. And, they would dress in a way that was very, very feminine and showing themselves, but without
That's not what I asked
necessarily.
though. I'm saying, where do you draw the
Where do
line?
you draw the line?
Yeah.
Well, it's also about how it's done, because the way in which they were shown was, they're grown women. They were shown in a way that's very beautiful, but not necessarily in a way that was vulgar. There wasn't a vulgarity to the way in which
How
they
do
were
we
perceived.
determine where that line of vulgarity begins?
Well, that's very interesting. I mean, I think that, I don't know, I suppose if I compare Gentlemen Prefer Blondes to a modern pornography film, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, you have, Marilyn and then her co-star dressing in an elegant way, and then you have these modern pornography stars. There's a big difference in, like, the modern porn stars are very, very trashy,
Well, we're
they're
getting more vague. So let's stick with your hourglass model skirt.
sure.
Legs being shown, not trashy, yeah?
No, I don't think that's.
The skirt comes higher, about up to here. That we're seeing little girls like 9-year-olds going and they're
See, that's different, isn't it? Because Marilyn Monroe is a grown woman, she's not a little girl.
no problem 18-year-old or
Yeah,
20-year-old.
Yeah, that's
Hair,
different.
that's trashy.
I mean, yeah, it's a big discussion to be had for sure, because a lot of women do genuinely in school. They say, how long should be your skirt and all that, how much legs
What about
you
you?
show.
What do you think? Because you're the one that's
The way
representing
I
this.
don't think it's wrong for women to show their legs at all. I do think, however,
That's
it
not what I'm
depends
asking,
on,
by the way. Yeah.
I know, but I
Yeah.
think it's good for the viewer to know.
Okay.
I think it depends on where you're going, who you're going with. That's why, for example, a lot of women, say if a woman's going to a nightclub, she's much safer. That's why traditionally, historically speaking, a woman goes with a man. It's like, oh, she's nice and people are looking at her, but if there's any trouble, I'm the man. I'm the one who's in control of the situation. So it's
So
like,
she can expose. So okay, this is interesting. So you're saying if she exposes a large part of her body, but
yeah.
she's going to a nightclub, you're saying that's all right because that's a place that's acceptable.
Yeah, and also because if her man is there, then it's almost like if there's any problem, he's the one who can step in, kind of thing.
When you say if there's a problem, if a woman is
Let's say
sumptuous,
she receives, I don't know,
if she,
unwanted
yeah,
attention.
do you, if a woman is beautiful, let's just say a 9, yeah, she's got bits and bobs hanging out, yeah, in whatever capacity, I mean, you say that this is all right, that's not all right. Would you say that she's not going to receive attention?
Well, here's the interesting thing. If every man was out and all of his, if every man was out and every man had a woman who was dressed like that, it would change the dynamic, wouldn't it? Because suddenly it's like, well, we've all got an attractive woman on our arms, so it's almost like, yeah, okay, I might look, but it's like we've all got an attractive girl, so
But
a
then,
man is not going to be as lightly. Whereas now we've got this modern
but you,
generation of
but you're
incels.
assuming attractiveness is objective.
I think it is.
Free Palestine,
I
nigga.
think that attractiveness is based on averages. I know I've actually looked into this scientifically. They usually say that women with, well, I'm saying women because women are, more typically more beautiful than men, anyway. But like, female beauty usually comes from averageness. So, for example, that's why women who are a certain shape.
That's
have
the
a certain
scientific
body
side.
face.
But when you look at
Sure.
certain people, based on, for example, certain parts of the globe that they're in, doesn't matter about a woman's face. If she's got her jugs out, with all due respect, a person's not going to be looking at her face. A person's going to be looking at her chest, and they're
Yeah.
going to be all over her like a rash. So if we take the logic that you're saying, that if all women just lower the standards of showing their body, then it desensitizes, that's what you're saying, isn't it? It desensitizes the people to the lack of clothing and people can express their beauty. But what you're now doing is you're correlating a person's femininity and beauty with reduction of clothes.
No, I
And when
wasn't
you're,
saying that. What I was
yeah,
actually saying is that a big part of being a feminine woman is celebrating and highlighting female beauty, and a lot of women
and you're
have
correlating that,
always done that.
yeah, and you're correlating that with, but not specifying specifically to showing parts of the body or wearing tight clothes.
Well,
But
here's an
here's the
interesting thing.
counter argument. Let me
Isn't
know what you think about this. Yeah, if a woman is in a burqa and a person converses with her, if a person converses with her, respects her, and falls in love with her, as opposed to a woman that's got her big jugs out, that's waxed her legs, that's done all of that sort of stuff, and color coordinated and all of that, would I be unreasonable in assuming, generally speaking, that the man that's standing in front of a woman that's exposing her body, his falling for her isn't as pure as falling as the other man who fell for the one in the burqa?
It doesn't really make sense to me because one of the first things a man looks at is a woman's attraction, and it's like if a woman's wearing a burqa, then where's the sexual attraction?
That's where I said where it came from. The conversation and
Well,
finding out who she is from
yeah,
what
but
she's saying
that's
rather
like a
than what she looks for.
friendship. You need to fall for a woman. You do need to find her sexually desirable as well. That's where, like, again, if I go back to the Madonna Hallgeist dichotomy, it's actually unhealthy because that's where you end up. I was talking about this earlier, actually. A lot of men, prostitution was legalized because a lot of men were not having sex with their wives, and I think it's really unhealthy. If a man is married and yeah, he's not sexually excited by his wife and he feels the need to go to a prostitute, maybe that's a fault of society of trying to almost desexualize women, where you end up with women either being completely sexless, chaste, virginal women in burqas, or women being these whores. And what I'm trying to say is, surely we should be trying to merge it together so a man has his wife and whore, for want of a better term, in one woman.
But coming back to the example that I gave, if a man is speaking to a woman with a burqa and then respects her and falls in love with her, any average person can say, you know what, that man is falling in love with her personality.
But why
And
do I need to
just
wear a
to,
burqa for a man to fall in love with my
because that's the
personality?
example that you used. I didn't use the burqa as an example. You brought it up, that's why I wanted to use your example for you. So with the burqa, if he's speaking to her and he falls in love, like I said, any average person can see, you know what, that person has fallen in love with her. with her soul, with her asal, which means her essence. And that essence, because looks will fade. 10, 15 years, things will start sagging, person will get bored. But it's the personality, it's the spirituality, it's the depth behind the person that is more important. With the woman with the jugs, I'm telling you as a man, and I've got a lot of self-control. But if a woman that's a 9 out of 10 is standing in front of me with her bits and bobs dangling out, that's a big test
Again,
for me.
don't you think they're just two extremes?
They are, but those are the extremes that you brought up.
And I'm
Sorry,
saying
sorry,
that I
sorry.
think that we shouldn't
No.
have those.
I don't think that the burqa is an extreme.
I do.
But that's why I'm saying we can discuss that. But because you brought up those two examples, that's why I'm using those two examples. So
Yeah.
to finish the second example, if I'm with that woman, I can't pay attention to her face because she's got her double D's in front of me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's very difficult for me to listen to what she's saying and respect her for who she is when I'm just seeing that. So now here's the thing. A woman that covers up her beauty, it's more likely that she will be respected for who she is as opposed to what she looks like.
Well, don't you think there can be both? Don't you think that a woman can be appreciated for her beauty, not in having her jugs out? It's like the way I'm dressed today. Okay, it's cold, but normally I normally wear a dress, right? When it's summer, even though I'm dressed now, I've got my hair out, for example. Why am I somehow less receptive to respect from a man because my hair's not covered? You see what I mean? It's like I don't really understand why is it that men. Why would I be less receiving of respect from men for my hair being out compared to my hair being covered? And also, as a woman, if I was, say, engaging with a man wearing a burqa, he's falling for me, there's something, again, there's an inherent sexistness in that because I think attraction, you're obviously completely right that spirituality is very important, but sexual attraction is important. And a lot of marriages fail or break down because of a lack of sexual attraction, especially for men. You know, men are
I agree with
obviously
you.
more
That's very
sexual
important.
than women, and I think that pornography, the two extremes that I perceive as, say, pornography versus the burqa, or even I'm just using the burqa as a symbol, but we'll say the overly sexual woman versus an utterly sexist, chaste woman.
These
are two extremes, and I think that this actually harms the way men look at women
I don't
because
think
it
it's an
means that
extreme.
well, I do, because I think it actually harms the way
Yeah.
men are able to look at women, rather than seeing women as, it's like if all women dress, let's say if all women university all wore nice dresses and they didn't necessarily have their tits overly out,
Yeah.
but it was like,
Zarina, let me just finish the example. You know why? Because I think some people will get a bit frustrated that I haven't given one important addition to this because that might kind of, you know what, bro? Are you there? Is he there?
sorry, do we want to
Oh,
finish seeing as
bro,
well? I know this
just
is
just
a
close
lot.
this, please.
Do we
Yes,
want to finish it?
we can do. Yeah. It's up to you. I don't want to keep you if you don't want to be here.
No, just because it's a bit gang.
Sure. That's absolutely fine. With the burqa, yeah, I need to add this on because to give it like an accurate representation. So with the burqa, if I'm speaking to a woman and then I respect her and this and that, and you know what, I think she's fantastic. The next step now is I can see her without the burqa. Bear in mind, the hijab and the burqa is only put on when she leaves the home. Her family sees her without the burqa, her husband sees her without the burqa, so it's only a select few people. Yeah, so that's a very important addition to make because some people think she's in the shower, she's wearing the burqa, she's with her brother, she's wearing the burqa. No, it's with the people that she shows herself to Islamically. That's the burqa, and I think that was very important to add in because it's used as an extreme, which it's not. It's a woman, like for example, the corona mask. Many women, when COVID had somewhat ended, they still felt so comfortable in the mask because they didn't get people wolf whistling at her, jeering at her, making passes at her. She was able to just live the way she is, and that I think is a very important distinction to make because here's the thing with regards to what you're saying. It's not that you're not going to be respected. Blanket statement. Objectively, scientifically, the question is, does your hair as a woman have sexual value?
I don't think so.
It's not about what you and I think. Because scientifically, we look at what the studies
it's
say.
red, the color of passion.
Well, that's one of the things. But here's the thing. Scientifically, the woman's hair has sexual value.
What's wrong with that?
I'll tell you. So when a woman's hair has sexual value, that means she's giving off sexual vibes.
Isn't that a good thing?
Not necessarily, because there's a difference between lust and love.
I agree. I
Lust-
also think that they go together.
Let me just finish the point, yeah? Because you've got good points. That's why I don't want to just brush past them. So I'll just finish this point and you can just jump in. So you've got makeup on, you've got your hair out. So with the hair, scientifically speaking, there are plenty of studies that have been done to say that hair has sexual value. And when a woman is sexually aroused, her lips turn red. You didn't hear that?
Well, I'm laughing because my lips are red.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Not
just
aroused
lipstick. You're not.
currently.
Yeah, you're not the only one. But makeup is rooted with a woman making herself more sexually desirable to a man.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.